Good morning. Today's video will probably be the shortest video yet because we are in the shortest book of the Bible, the book of 3rd John, which is 15 verses long, barely 200 words, and it's a very specific letter to a specific church member in a specific church situation. So there's not a lot in here that we can just pull out and apply to our own lives. So I instead want to focus on a very general principle that is true of pretty much all of the New Testament letters. Let me start by reading you just a couple verses from 3rd John. I wrote to the church, but Diotrephes, who loves to be first, will not welcome us. So when I come, I will call attention to what he is doing, spreading malicious nonsense about us. Not satisfied with that, he even refuses to welcome other believers. He also stops those who want to do so and puts them out of the church. So this guy named Diotrephes, he's causing problems. He's spreading lies about John, and he's keeping other people out of the church. And anyone who disagrees with him, he puts them out of the church. Not good. I've heard stories like this even today, where there are longtime members of a church who try to keep out any newcomers, and they try to get rid of anybody who opposes them. It can be really toxic. So 3rd John is part of a group of writings in the Bible called the epistles. These were letters that were written to churches or to church leaders. And here's something that all of the epistles have in common, as far as I know, without exception. They were all written to churches with problems. In fact, in most every case, they were written because a church was having problems. Here are just some of the first century issues that the apostles had to write about. Disunity among believers. Bad theology, whether that was Gnosticism or beliefs about the second coming. False teachers who were spreading said bad theology. Sexual immorality, inside and outside of the church. Disagreement about food. So much disagreement about food. It's crazy. Lawsuits among believers, racial tension, disagreement about circumcision, how to deal with government authority, bad apples in the congregation. That's what John is writing about here in this epistle. And this list is just a start. The apostles had to resolve conflicts left and right about any number of issues. Now, some Christians look at this and they say, awesome. The Bible has a whole encyclopedia of answers about how to deal with church conflict. I mean, look at all of the topics that it addresses. What a gift. Well, sure, the Bible can give us great guidance, but I walk away with a different takeaway. What I see is this: all churches will have problems. It's not like 2,000 years later, we've ironed out all the kinks and now we don't have any problems. Churches in every place around the world will have problems of some kind. Now, they may not look like the problems of the first century church. My local congregation isn't currently arguing about circumcision, as far as I know, but there will be problems, and that's okay. That's to be expected. Why? Well, that's actually part one of the question for today. Why do churches have problems? So you could just say that the Bible records problems in the early church because it was all new and they were still figuring out their theology and how to welcome in the Gentiles, all that stuff. But now the church has been around for a while, so the problems should go away. But if you've been a Christian for longer than a year, you probably know that that isn't true. Churches still have problems. And there's a very basic reason for this. People. The church is made up of people. And furthermore, the church is a community full of people who are different. The church ought to be multi-ethnic and multi-class and multicultural, but when this happens, expect there to be conflict. There will be problems. What I see in the early church is that they sought to resolve conflict, not avoid it. They knew that a gospel community of very different people coming together would cause some problems. They knew that entrusting leadership to imperfect people was risky and problematic. But these problems were worth it to do the work of Jesus. And so rather than avoiding problems and trying to form churches full of people who only agreed with each other, they sought to accept these challenges and work through them. So here's my follow-up question for you. What's a good way and a bad way to handle church problems? Come up with one of each. Maybe you can answer this from your own experience as a church member. Maybe you have ideas based on your own reading of the Bible. Maybe your answer is just based on conflict resolution in any work or community environment. But whatever it is, think about how church members should process through any issues in general. I see people leave churches because of problems within their local community. You probably have too. Now, there are some really toxic church communities, and sometimes you just need to leave those places. But I think most of the time, churches just have problems. And rather than running away from a particular community because of its problems, I would challenge you to engage with your community to resolve conflict. It's hard work, but it's biblical. Tomorrow, we will be in a different book of the Bible chosen by our randomizer. We are going to the book of Job. That'll be uplifting and optimistic. All right, we will be in the book of Job tomorrow. We will see you then. Make sure you subscribe before you leave, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.